Well, welcome. Thoughts can change your life with me, Reverend Lee. Today, I'm going to take on a question. This is something that pops up for me all the time. It's one of the things that I focus on in my teaching is why do relationships fail? And everyone has had relationships that fail. And we always tend to want to blame the other person. They did this, they did that, they didn't fill my need, they didn't do this, and all of that. What I'm going to tell you is the number one reason that all relationships fail is because there's not enough self love. If a relationship is built on a bad foundation, it cannot exist. So without self love, there can be no love for another because the relationship always starts within you. It's one of my taglines: everything begins and ends with you. Your job is to learn how to better self love. When I'm talking about self love, I'm talking about accept. Do you accept everything about you? Do you accept all of your triumphs? Do you accept all of your failures? When you look in the mirror, do you accept all of the wrinkles, the gray hair, the places where there's a lack of hair, the places where there's too much hair? Do you accept that? Do you accept that you're maturing every day? Or do you fight it? You see, when we fight against something, we're not accepting ourselves. For me, you're looking at me, you're witnessing me right here, right now. You can see if you're watching, you can see the wrinkles on my skin. You can see some age spots on my face. You can see the gray hair. You can see the thinning in the hair. I can't change that. All I can do is accept it. And you see, when I accept it, I come out of judgment. When I'm out of judgment, I'm in love. I'm actually self-loving. By accepting me, I open myself up to the possibility that I like me. How many people out there really like who they are? That's a really good question. Before you can like yourself, you got to accept yourself. So wait a second, let me say hi. We got a new guy out there. We got John. He's a pastor and he lives in India. Oh, wait, you're watching live from India. I love it. I've been to India, John, 3 times. I've been to Tibet. I've been to Nepal. I've done the trek around Mount Kailash. I've studied under numerous gurus in India. There's a lot of beauty in India. And then there's also the contrast. You see, let's look at that. If you go into the Himalayas, nothing's more beautiful. If you go into the slums of Mumbai, completely different experience. So let's look at that. India, contrast, right? What about you? What do you really like about you? And know that there's the other side. There's the part of you that you don't like. There's the Himalayan side of you, and there's the Mumbai slum side of you. Can you accept both? Can you accept both? Because if you can't, then there's no self-love. If there's no self-love, how can you accept anyone else? How can you accept anyone else when you don't accept yourself? Think about, why is there so much judgment in the world today? Because people don't accept themselves. Because if they did, they would understand that that other person is being their unique selves. that other person is doing the best they can based on their level of awareness. We're all seeking to expand and grow, to become more aware, to have a greater experience of life. And we're all doing it in different ways. And we forget that. We forget that we're not supposed to be doing it in the same way. So I look at my own relationship with my wife. And while we get along fantastically, we are on not completely, but we're on different paths. We're experiencing things so very, very differently. And the beauty of it is, it doesn't matter, because she is accepting. Every day she's beginning to accept herself more and more and more for who she is. And every day I'm accepting myself more and more and more for who I am. And the more I accept me, the more I can accept her. This is really a simple concept. And yet, it's one of the most difficult to practice. Why? Because of society around us does not follow this idea. Society around us judges. Look at all the major religions of the world. Look at Christianity. Look at Islam. Look at Judaism. Judgment is rampant. Just because they create this idea of hell. Just think about that. They create the idea of hell, or they create the idea of the devil. What does that automatically bring into play? Judgment. And if God judges you, then you must judge you. The false narrative there is that God doesn't judge. And you say, what are you talking about, Lee? Think about this. Every great religion that I know, that I've studied, says God is love. If God is love, it's impossible for God to judge. That's a big one, isn't it? So why don't you become more like God? Stop judging. Start looking in the mirror and liking yourself, accepting yourself for who you are, and realize that your uniqueness, your foibles, your wrinkles, your lack of hair, your lot of hair, what curly hairs, straight hair, whatever it is, it makes you unique. And no one in the world is going to love you more than you love yourself. Did you really catch that? No one in the world is going to love you as much as you love yourself. So if you're in a relationship, or you're desiring to have a relationship, and you're wondering why your current relationship has a certain experience, or your past relationships have had certain experiences and they weren't all that great, it's because they were reflecting back to you how much you loved yourself. You see, relationships are a mirror. They reflect back to us who we are so that we can become more. I know, we hit some really big things today, didn't we? Yeah, this is work that I do, and I do this work with couples. I have a whole couples program that's about 8 hours long, that is in depth, that's beyond anything most people have ever thought about. I do that because it's what I found worked for me. And that's what I do. I teach what works for me. I don't teach anything that I've not tested for myself. So I invite you today to look in the mirror. Whoever you are, whether you're Lori, Louie, Laura, Corey, Chris, John, Barbara, accept yourself just like you are. And because I accept me, I want you to know I accept you. Make this your most self-loving day ever. Until tomorrow, aloha.